Hello everyone, I'm here to give you an update on the latest employment numbers. If you remember last month, I gave you an update on what happened in the month of August. Well, last Friday, the September jobs numbers were posted, and I'm here to give you a nice little review of it. Like I said before, one of the most important indicators that come out for this is how many jobs were created on net, and that's called payroll employment right here. And we see that in September, right here, that's 136,000 jobs were created. And that's a little bit light because the market was expecting 150,000. So that's a little bit under expectations. But the previous 2 months, August and July, were revised upward. So it's kind of a mixed bag. But you could see that the last 4 months, there's been this downward trend in job creation. That has some people concerned because a lot of people are talking about a recession that's right around the corner. Now, a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. And if you remember our talk about GDP, that's simply a measurement of economic activity, and the activity that we're measuring is output. So if output contracts for 6 months or more, that's a recession. And people are looking at employment data to kind of maybe get an early glimpse as to what will happen down the road with GDP. Because when you think about it, GDP measures output, and what drives output? Well, demand drives output. What drives demand? Income. And what drives income? Employment. That's why so many people look at these statistics. Now, another indicator that people look at is the unemployment rate, and now that fell a little bit to 3.5%, which is about a 50-year low. Now that's fantastic, and you can see it's come down from its height of about 10% since the last recession, and that's great. The one thing that this has got us a little concerned is if the economy does start to speed up, where are the workers going to come from? Because we're already maxed out in terms of who's looking for work. So definitely if the economy starts to soften, you would see this number come up. But you would only see that after we've confirmed GDP is contracting. So this is what we call kind of a lagging indicator. Now let's look on the other statistics here. Let me just bring this up a little bit. So these are, let me get my pen back up. So this is average hourly earnings. And this tells you how much we're earning or how much earnings are increasing annually, percentage-wise. And you could see here now we've been seeing this nice upward trend. So that means wages are accelerating. But lately, it's kind of dipped. So the question is it going to continue to go this way? Or are we going to see a nice little revival that way? But you could see that wages are growing around 3.7%, 2.7% annually. 2.7% annually. That's what that number says right there, and that's decent, but it's still not as high as we were growing prior to the recession. Another important indicator is the labor force participation rate. Now, the labor force is how we actually calculate the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate, so the U rate, is simply the number of unemployed people over the labor force, right? And so the labor force participation rate is simply the labor force over the population. Now, population, I really mean over the age of 16 population. And you could see that people started to drop out of the labor force at the recession, but now it's stabilized. So it's kind of flat. Now, one of the reasons for this drop, not only because of the recession, because of the baby boom generation. The baby boom generation was born between 1946 and 1962, and the people born in the late 40s, they're starting to retire. And since the baby boom generation is the largest generation, so it's the people born within those years, the number of those people outnumber the people born prior and the people born after. And so when they start to leave the labor force, it has an impact on the overall labor force. So that's one reason. And what we see over here is I've got the labor force. This number right here is what you see right here. But I've got a much wider time scale. I'm going back from 1975 rather than 2007. And you could see here I also tracking female participation rate and male participation rate. And you could see that the female population started to join the labor force in greater numbers, and that's what caused the overall participation rate to trend upward. But the male participation rate, starting around 1980, has been trending downward, and that has a lot of people concerned. Now, the final number I'm going to be looking at is the average weeks of unemployment. So this tells you if you lose your job, what's the average time it takes somebody to find work. And you could see prior to the recession, it was about 17 weeks. And then the recession started, and then it took people a lot longer to find work, and it peaked at about 42 weeks. So at the height of the perils of employment, it took people almost a year to find work. But then things started to improve, and it's come down considerably. So right now it's at about 26 weeks. Again, which is good. So this labor data is good data. It's a bit soft compared to what we were experiencing about a year ago. But right now it's not showing any clear signs that a recession is around the corner. So as usual, I welcome your comments and questions, and this could be a good way for you to try to incorporate some of the things that we've learned in how you analyze this stuff. So let me hear from you. Okay, that's all for now.